our turn. So freak out, yes, nobody is wrong. You and I both just have a views, that's all. Someone will make me do crazy shit. When have I ever forced you to do that? Give me my place back, hey, I will take your special place still. The world is not so tight, right? Strike back! Get them out of your way! You don't care if along the way's a little sacrifice. Strike back! Get them out of your way! Don't melt in the world, find you a way! Give that back, nobody will miss it. I just say I'm the step that body, do it out of turn. I say here's back down, cause nobody denies it. You and I both just have our views, that's all. You are not me, you're not alone. You are not my downfall either. If your voices will fill the sky, I'll take the wasteland, but I won't be alone, never. Strike back! Get them out of your way! You don't care if along the way's a little sacrifice. Strike back! Get them out of your way! Don't melt in the world, find your way! Let's go and step it body, let's go and step it body, let's go and step it body, step it body, step it body. Strike back! Get them out of your way! You don't care if along the way's a little sacrifice. Strike back! Get them out of your way! Listen to your heart, not the voice in your head. Get them out of your way! You don't care if along the way's a little sacrifice. Strike back! Get them out of your way! Don't melt in the world, find you a way! Through the darkest sky, throw before the light, like a cry for the moon. Never-ending ride, forgot what I want, never felt my heart in me. That's right, go forward, don't look back. I can't believe in the path I'm on. Faith, pride, so what do I have to feel? Under the sacred fires, never stop, just go. I don't care how many more gotta get. Here in the pale fire, I'm going out where I can. I hope my path will be a guideline for someone to follow. The roar of the storm. innocent, sound becomes fun again. Never ending wide, forgot what I want. Is this Arcadia? I don't know what's right for the world. Oh, I may have lost my way. There's no reason to doubt it now. So what do I have to feel? Under the sacred wires, never stop, just go. I don't care how many more stars again. Here in the pale fire, I'm going out for eyes again. I hope my path will be. I got a light for a someone to follow. The roar of the spark. Time to give a seed. It is hard to breathe. The light goes out again. Never-ending road, a place without color. That's the world we can't die. That's right, go. Don't look back. I can't believe in the path I'm on. Wait, right. So what do I have to be? Under the lonely moon, it only blacks the words. This road shine with my colors. Bearing the pale fire, I'm going out for other kid to keep that flow alive. Under the sacred fires, never stop, just go. I don't care how many more stars again. Yeah, bearing the pale fire, I'm going out for eyes again. It will be endless, and it's never end. Hoping to build the world with all kinds of blood.
Hello gente, ¿cómo están? Espero que muy bien. Y espero que estén bien animados porque yo también estoy perfectamente animado con ustedes. Hagas de presencia en los comentarios, así quién está por aquí. Chris, muchas gracias por venir acá. Un usuario que se llama, creo que es genérico, fue creado en agosto. Y ya saben, hello people, welcome to my stream. Today is a Windows L Classic game. Yo estoy descansando un poco. Porque después vendrá lo siguiente. Y después vendrá lo más tremendo posible. Vamos a revisar la gente que va llegando. Ricky Yolo, no sé quién seas, pero bienvenido. Usuario genérico. A los usuarios genéricos vamos a tener que... bien. ¿Y usted cómo le va?
All you need to know is one or two things, or
Sorry about that. Pero no aceptamos bots o cuentas que vayan llegando de otra parte a hacer raid por aquí. Bueno, ¿qué juego? Se van a preguntar qué juego voy a tener que traer aquí. Y ahí te lo van a poner en el título. Pero que por un momentico voy a detener esto y lo voy a poner aquí para acomodarlo. Para acomodarlo aquí en el... Listo, todavía no se muestra. Espero que se muestre completamente. Ahí completa. Ok, aquí estamos. Tanto trabajo por hacer, Tanto trabajo por hacer, muchacho. Ya me tocó. Lamentablemente me tocó por ventana. Ah, cómo me cansa esto. Plan B. Lo peor es que se muestra la parte de abajo. A ver, esto. Fondo retro gaming. Fondo retro gaming, eso ya lo quité. No, de todas maneras se muestra lo consiguiente, la parte de abajo. No quiero que se muestre la parte de abajo. Entonces. Plan B. Sí, plan B. Ventana doble, configuración actual. Ok, configuración actual. Ok, no hay problema. Abajo se muestra. No sé cómo vayan a ver ustedes. Pero vamos a reiniciar un poquito el juego. Música. Igual lo voy a volver a cargar. No tengo problema con eso. Para que vea exactamente qué juego es el que voy a poner acá. ¿Se escucha bien el audio? Que le subí un poquito para que no se mezcle tanto el ruido del micrófono. Gracias. Exactamente. Pitfall, las aventuras del mayan. Pero ahora vamos a hacer lo siguiente. Es la versión de PC y debo estar asegurado de que tengo que jugar el primer nivel. O sea, ya lo vemos en 60 fotogramas, saltando y todo eso. Así que vamos a la aventura. Obviamente estoy jugando con teclado, que me facilita. Ah, me fui. Me fui otra vez. Vaya, no veía este juego desde hace décadas. Sí, desde hace décadas. Que hace unos segundos Coco me dio host. Muchas gracias, Coco, por darme el alojamiento a mi canal. Usted sabe que se le agradece. Pero como ustedes saben, yo traigo juegos de alta calidad auditiva. Este como tiene banda sonora en modo disco, y ha sido lanzado para Amiga, Commodore Amiga, para Super Nintendo, para Sega Genesis, mejor dicho, para diferentes plataformas. Y por eso lo voy a decir de una vez: si traigo otro videojuego aparte de este, con gusto se los presento. Y se nota que este videojuego tiene alta calidad de fotogramas. Para hacer una versión de Windows, cumple. Y sorpresa, Chris, este juego lo tenía el amigo de mi hermano, lo cual me dio una sorpresa de que lo trajera a mi casa. Y es un juego de plataformas que nunca había probado, y ahora que lo vuelvo a probar aquí para ustedes, es una gozada. Y fueron los mismos desarrolladores los que hicieron el port de Fatal Fury para Windows 95, Kinesoft. Lo llegó a pasar. Por eso digo, es un juego de plataforma bastante interesante. ¡Ay! No, me fui. Todavía te tengo un regalito. Ven aquí. El anillo. Toca agarrar el anillo. Ay, no sé cómo lo hice. Oh. A ver qué le pasó a la música porque no se escucha. Cataratas de Xibalba. Pero hasta donde pueda jugar, eso sí. Menos mal que abajo aparece qué nivel es. Que si no todo en inglés, hoy Dios mío. Okay. Changuito. ¿Sabes? Uy, faltó agarrar una cosa. ¿Será que lo puedo agarrar? Uy, yo creo que ya no. No se puede cruzar. Pero ¿dónde me devolvió? Ay, está loco. Este mapa está muy loco. Demasiado loco para ser cierto. Acércate, acércate. So.
All right.
Ok, tengo que mirar dónde pasar este nivel. Ya que mi hermano es el único que lo pasó y yo en ese entonces estaba en el colegio.
Whoa.
Vamos a ver qué es lo que tengo que hacer.
Yeah.
Ahí secreto. Me van a matar por hacer tonteras. Pero necesito salir de aquí como sea. Ay, a ver.
Whoa.
Oh,
Whoa. Oh yeah. Whoa.
las monedas.
Whoa.
O sea,
Whoa. Whoa.
le pegué un águila.
All right.
Bueno, ya pasamos al otro nivel. Minas de Tazamul. Vamos a ver qué tal este nivel.
Let's go.
Torre loca. ¿Y ahora qué nivel me llevará?
Yeah. Yeah.
tenía que ser pan comido. Bueno, voy a verle el lado positivo. Ya tengo 5 vidas. ¡Ay, me fui! Regresa en un momento, compañero. Debo volver a trabajar. Vale, no te preocupes. Tengo que intentarlo otra vez. Ay, no puede ser. Esperen un momento, creo que se me olvidó una cosa por aquí. Entonces aquí ya voy a actualizar, quito esto. Listo, para que se vea que es en serio. Que ya se actualizó, ya estamos directamente en el juego. Ah, me fui. Ah. Dios mío. Tengo que saltar para evitarme eso. Ah, muy bien. Estamos en la ciudad perdida de Copán. Con 3 vías. Me gusta. Un momento. Santas calaveras, más mal. Ahora sí. Vamos a ver por acá. Eso. Que esté completito. Ay, me fui. Ah, no salté a tiempo. Ay, no. Ah, se me metió la caña en el ojo. No, creo que había un secreto en esto. Y era para jugar el Pitfall del Atari 2600.
Oh yeah.
Sé lo que tengo que hacer aquí.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Pues, ¿sabes? Ay, no. Posiblemente vaya a cambiar a arte. Si hacemos un pixelar de acuerdo a lo que se está estrenando, muchas cosas. O poner reacciones, ya que creo que sería lo justo esas reacciones a última vida y me la estoy malgastando en esto. Muy bien, tenemos que continuar o por continuar. Pero ¿cuántos niveles llevamos desbloqueados? Uy, va a ser mucho. A ver, creo que cámara secreta del Lotun 1. Vamos a ver aquí. Usa la combinación repitiendo esto en el teclado. O sea, 1.
Yeah. Whoa.
La versión PC tiene... Sí, la versión de PC de este videojuego tiene muchas cosas muy guardadas. Así que regresamos por acá. Vamos a terminar aquí el juego. y nos vamos a las canciones. Así que muchachos, ¿cómo les parece? Seguiré trayendo más juegos que no han visto ustedes, o que sí la han visto, pero que por conveniencia sea de su agrado. Así que vamos a revisar. Vamos a revisar un poquito mi servidor, que no quiere dejarlo abandonado. Esto va a reaccionar. Me van a tener que esperar un momento porque debo ir a hacer algunas cosas. Regreso.
Same day has come, a different day from everyone. It's like my time was frozen still. I grew past my atoms, back well, the smell from that cafe makes me hungry, and you all
Ya regresamos, gente. ¿Cómo les ha ido? Espero que muy bien. Yo aquí llegando de hacer unas pequeñas cositas, relajándome los oídos. Y pues bueno, ahorita que estoy viendo respecto a reacciones de un ordenador. Esto ya lo vi, ok. Denme un momento. Van a ver algo que sacó Lazy Game Reviews en su canal de YouTube, por lo cual es algo interesante. Es algo interesante imprimir cosas en discos. Y de hecho es uno de mis youtubers favoritos. Voy a hacer pausa porque, a ver, no quiero empezar una bioreacción con todo esto. Así que vamos a ponerlo en ópera. Listo. La calidad está, la voy a poner en 720 a 60. Okay. Y nos vamos directamente a la reacción. Ok, vale. De un momento que voy a ponerlo en español. But you have the English user for this video. You understand what you say, Lazy Game Reviews in this stream. Okay, let's go.
Greetings, folks, and this time in LGR we're looking at a rather excellent machine from Japan, the Sony Vaio PCV MX2 from the year 2000. It is quite the eye-catching system, with that blood orange LCD screen and chunky volume knob, looking more like a part of a mid-size stereo system than a PC. And that's not the only hi-fi similarity. It's also packing a built-in amplifier, CD player, FM radio, remote control, and a Minidisc Drive. Yeah, right below its fancy slot-loading DVD-ROM is a straight-up Minidisc recorder mounted inside, usable both on its own without the PC powered up or in conjunction with Sony Minidisc authoring software for Windows. Ooh, this is gonna be fun to dive into, so I hope you're in the mood for the late 90s Sony multimedia PC experience. Ever since Sony introduced the Vaio line in 1996, these computers always stood out from the desktop PC crowd in my mind. Compared to all the countless beige and white towers, Vaios were a breath of fresh air. With Sony's classic design sensibilities and the series' trademark silver and blue color scheme, though I wish the MX2 had more blue accents, as seen in Sony's advertising where they added more color and boosted saturation with more vibrancy than I've ever seen on a Vaio in person. But whatever, either way, I like how they look, and the PCV MX2 is one of my favorites. As for what it cost back in 2000, well, it's hard to say precisely since there was no suggested retail price. Instead, Sony listed it using the open price concept, allowing individual Japanese retailers to determine how much to sell it for based on current market conditions, meaning prices could vary from store to store. For the most part, though, it seems the PCV MX2 sold for between 330 to 440,000 yen, or around 3 to 4,000 US dollars.
Wow.
Roughly $5,000 to $6,000 or so, adjusted for inflation. Yeah, VAIOs were a lot of things, but low cost was never one of them. And that was another reason I was drawn to them back then. The price made them unobtainable, and no one I knew ever had one, so they always seemed like a status symbol. Doubly so with the VAIOs we never got in the US, like the original PCV MX series. This initial line of Minidisc-equipped machines was produced and sold exclusively in Japan between 1999 and 2001, beginning with the PCV MX1, quickly followed up with the MX2 I have, and then the MX3 and MX5 models in 2000 and 2001. We're sticking to the MX2 though, which came in 3 configurations, one with an LCD monitor, one with a CRT, and one with a speaker-equipped CRT that connected to a TV tuner card. Each model MX2 had the same specs otherwise, starting with the CPU, a respectable 750 MHz Intel Pentium 3 processor, paired with 64 MB of PC100 SD RAM, a standard if unimpressive amount and speed in 2000. For storage, there's a 30 GB IDE hard drive with Windows 98 2nd Edition and a whole lot of OEM software installed. And graphics are handled by a 16 MB NVIDIA Riva TNT2 from Asus, an AGP4X card with DVI, S-Video, and VGA output. Sound is handled by an integrated chip on the motherboard, but it's surprisingly good. It's an AU8830 All-Real Vortex 2, supporting A3D 2.0 for spatial effects and pseudo surround sound in stereo. And the audio situation gets even better from there. The MX2 also has a built-in stereo amplifier with audio jacks for unpowered speakers, line-level RCA output, and optical in and out. Originally, it would have come with this pair of unpowered VAIO speakers neatly completing the bookshelf hi-fi aesthetic, but mine unfortunately didn't. So I'm using this random set of Sonys I found at a thrift store. Unlike the original speakers, they're not magnetically shielded, and it's not a great idea to put them up against a CRT, so I'm using this 15-inch LCD monitor, a Sony SDM M51.
Si alguno de ustedes se consigue este tipo de computadores en Japón, si llegan a por lo menos a decir que esto se vende en Gringolandia o en cualquier otra parte, eso sí te creo. Eso sí te creo tremendo. Más tremendo no puede ser cierto. Pero continuemos. Sony SDM M51. Luego lo voy a investigar.
It's not the same display that was bundled with the MX2, but it's still a TFT LCD of the same size and general time period, so it'll do. The mouse was easier to track down since it used the same style of PS2 ball mouse with a scroll wheel seen on late 90s VAIOs here in the US. Next up is the keyboard, a rubber dome membrane board typical of VAIOs from back then, mushy and cheap feeling but entirely usable. It's also got this removable plastic wrist rest with on-brand branding and a row of application shortcut keys along the top with special attention being brought to the help key. How helpful. And of course the board uses the expected Japanese layout with all the usual localized keys and characters and the resulting cute little spacebar. Another quirk of the MX2 only being built for Japan is the power supply, which is set to 100 volts only with no switch for any other voltages. And a power cord that has a standard C13 connector on one end, but a non-polarized 2-prong connector on the other end with a ground wire sticking out. So I'll be using it with this US to Japanese powered transformer to step down the voltage, plus it provides a place to screw in the ground wire. Lastly, in terms of peripherals, there's the remote control, and unlike many PC remotes back then, this one isn't meant to handle much of anything on the software side of things. Instead, it's geared almost entirely towards using the front panel audio stuff via this infrared sensor. Yeah, that's only for the remote. It doesn't do IRDA communication like you often got on laptops and PDAs. On that note, it actually does have a Type 2 PC card slot for plugging in PCMCIA devices, something Sony was fond of including with their desktops instead of only laptops. And it's actually attached to this extra long PCI modem card from Ricoh, So on the other side of it is this V90 K-Flex fax modem chipset plopped onto the same board. Neat. Also up front, underneath that little flappy door, is a selection of 3.5mm audio jacks, a single USB 1.1 port, and an S400 iLink port. Now this was Sony's version of what most know as FireWire, with a 4-pin interface on the front and the larger 6-pin port around back. An excellent thing to have, included from the factory. And what is this little Sesame Street sticker on there? I don't think that was factory installed. I guess the previous owner forgot to clear their cookies. Another fancy addition is the FM radio receiver, integrated into the PC right below the amplifier with a coax connector to screw in an antenna for better reception. Once again, though, being built for the Japanese market means it's limited to Japanese radio frequencies.
Para llevártelo de lámpara y que quieras escuchar tu emisora favorita. Y por cierto, las radios están disponibles en donde está viviendo él.
These ranged between 76 to 90 megahertz, so it fails to pick up most of the 90 to 108 megahertz stations used here in the States, which in Japan was used for VHF TV instead of radio. So there's not a lot to pick up here at all without an FM transmitter, and obviously that won't let me show the radio teletext function, though it is kind of fun to see all the station presets left by the previous owner. On the topic of this front panel, the whole thing actually functions independently from the PC, and pressing the audio button on the case or the remote powers up the panel alongside the amplifier with all its own settings and controls. It's a weird stereo system PC hybrid, and that's awesome, letting you play CDs and mini-discs, listen to FM radio and optical sources, as well as record CDs, radio, and optical directly to mini-discs. Now, all it can do is basic recording only, though. You can't erase tracks or apply song or artist labels without booting up the PC and running some software, but it's a fun novelty regardless. And you do at least get some additional settings, like a 5-band equalizer, adjustments for the LCD and inputs, a sleep timer, alarm, and so on. And everything is controlled via the panel buttons, or using the RM-MX1 remote control, with the exception of the time and date, which is handled by the PC and its own internal clock. And whenever it's powered off, the time display stays on with dim backlighting, acting as one seriously overqualified desktop clock. But obviously, the Minidisc Drive is the machine's real standout feature, which, in case you're unaware or need a refresher, Minidisc was Sony's proprietary magneto-optical disc format introduced in 1992. Not to be confused with mini CDs or UMDs, those are different things. It's also distinct from MD data, which I've covered before on LGR. MD data used its own separate kind of mini discs for file storage, and while the drives could read audio MDs, they couldn't write them. So it's awesome to see a proper mini disc recorder inside a PC like this, which allowed reading and writing of audio MDs both on its own and through Windows. And I gotta wonder how many folks accidentally tried sticking a floppy disk in there without realizing, since the two slots are kinda similar if you're not paying attention. Also, it's worth noting that this is only intended for use with original mini discs, not the later versions like MDLP or NetMD. Sony released PCs during the Windows XP era, supporting those, several of which actually released outside of Japan this time, like the PCV RX403N and PCV MXS10, each having MDLP drives with NetMD support. But the original PCV MX series stuck with OGMD, and in fact the mechanism inside is actually a KMK260AAB. Same exact unit used in multiple standalone players, like the Onkyo MD122MX here. Really, the only thing that's unique is the PC interface board it's connected to, which links the mechanism to both the front panel and the PC itself. I know this because the MD drive inside the computer was totally dead when I first got it, so I ended up transplanting the mechanism from another mini disc recorder. Thankfully, the ribbon cable connectors are identical between the two, and the main challenge was swapping out the metal housing, springs, and doors between the two units and rehousing the thing inside the 5¼ drive cage. A little tedious, but entirely doable, and yeah, works perfectly now. Right, so that's enough wafting about with wonky old hardware. Let's move on to the software side of things by hooking everything up, powering it on, and trying out the included software with Windows 98. Alright, finally time to get this lovely PC powered on. Hear that DVD-ROM. And he got that lovely Sony logo at the start up there. How special. And not too loud, considering its age. The fans seem to have held up pretty nicely after a little bit of cleaning. And of course, loaded on here we do have Windows 98 second edition, the Japanese version of it. So this is localized as you would expect with the language settings and all that, which does make things a little interesting in terms of loading certain software. And yeah, if you heard that beep right there, that's actually coming from the PCMCIA card, or really the PC card interface with the modem that's in there. That actually counts as slot 2 for PCMCIA, because you know there's the front panel and then the modem on the same card. The modem counts as slot 2.
Oh, ese sonidito, por Dios.
Those larger amplified speakers certainly are a step up from the usual desktop computer speakers that you got back in the day, at least that I'm used to. Sounds really good. And yeah, I'm also really lucky to have found this system with an original Windows 98 SE installation, complete with all the OEM software from Sony and the drivers and such, and that stuff can be ridiculously elusive nowadays, and I have yet to find any recovery discs for this particular model. So please, oh man, if anyone watching has access to a set of PCV MX2 system and application recovery discs from Japan,
lo que tiene que ser todo computador.
Please
tiene
back them up and share them. Send me an email. It would be hugely
El
appreciated.
Professional
I mean,
2003.
all the stuff that's on here, it's hard to get these things restored without those discs, so I'm just really lucky to have the hard drive. I've backed up all the files I've got here, but the installation, it deserves to be preserved, and I would love to get this thing completely factory fresh without having to go through and do it manually. So let's dive into some of the software here. Just really quick before I change the camera angle and get a closer look. Check this out. I really do like the fact that you have some special shortcuts that show up at your channel. So if you were to just press MX, for instance, this is going to open the MX Stage software from Sony. Oh, love those sounds. And yeah, sort of the cluster here for all of your different audio features. So, yeah, we've got a media bar for different playback and visualization of
Está demasiado chévere.
from your hard drive or
solamente que está en japonés.
MP3s and things like that. And then over here we got your regular volume settings. This is pretty cool too. So when you do the big knob, look at that. It affects it over on the computer side as well.
Ah, cuando le subes y le bajas el volumen se sube de ahí.
These kind of functions
es una
are some of the
auténtica
only
locura.
ways that the whole front panel and the Windows software side of things work together, because otherwise it's all like on its own. Like you can press the audio button and it doesn't do anything. All these other buttons, none of that stuff. Because that is all the front panel.
Los botones también influyen.
Otherwise, you got the software being software. So yeah, we will explore some of this stuff a little bit closer when we go ahead and change the camera angle to something a little bit more appropriate. All right, hope that's good. I've done my best to compensate for the moire effect on these old LCDs, but you know, it is what it is. So yeah, in terms of the software that comes with, I believe this VAIO folder here in the start menu is pretty much everything that was originally included with it, more or less. I don't know if it's more or less. Like I said, the previous owner just left everything on there, which is why I picked up this particular machine and imported it from Japan, because like there's so much stuff still on here and it hasn't been wiped or anything. But since I can't factory restore it, since I don't have the discs, I'm just assuming everything's on here, with the exception of something called Post-Pet. I believe it's like a pet raising kind of program. I don't see that on here, unfortunately, but there are some fascinating things. Got all these wonderful VAIO wallpapers. Got the water one, sky. Oh, that one's
La verdad, esa es una gozada.
3D objects, and then fire. Yeah. All those are just wonderful. I love OEM wallpapers. And it does have additional screensavers. Don't know which ones are unique.
Una verdadera gozada entre
MX Demo.
este tipo de contenidos en todo su esplendor que hace las game reviews.
Japanese versions of the regular screensavers that you recognize from Windows 98. But yeah, let's open this one because this is just pretty neat on its own. It's
Nice,
less a
por eso.
screensaver, more of a demo kiosk kind of thing.
Mejor lo salto para que no me lleguen los derechos de autor en YouTube, porque todo lo que sube directo en sí lo subo por YouTube de por sí.
TV, if you have the version with the TV capture tuner card thing. Minidisc, dude. So many things. The PCV MX2. And that's all that is. I just want to show you that because I think it's absolutely the best. Nothing too crazy to see in terms of Windows things. If you mess with 98, then you know what it is. Let's open some music though. Of course, we got to go to classic here. Canyon Dud Mid. Get that wavetable going on the Unreal Vortex 2.
Hasta tiene su pantallita. Vamos a seguirla. Vamos a seguir adelantando un poquito, de a poquito, para ver qué es lo que verdad. Qué es lo que tiene de verdad esta preciosura. PDBs, navegador de internet, tenemos el Internet Explorer. También tiene un editor de programas específicamente para lo que es de la licencia de Sony, un mapa. Está probando el Duke Nukem. Vamos a ir por ese camino.
Hey, whatever. I work when I want to, baby.
Tiene fotogramas estables.
These kind of get very silent DOS games unless you have the general MIDI support actually working. I don't know. Computers are so weird, man. I don't understand computers. So yeah, you got general MIDI, and that's pretty much it. No ad-lib emulation, no Sound Blaster PCM stuff. You get PC speaker, that's there. So if you got games with that, but Duke Nukem here. This is relying on MIDI and Sound Blaster for sound effects, but yeah, that's about all you get. Runs great, of course. Obviously, it's Pentium 3. You got plenty of performance. 750 megahertz. Whoops, I did not mean to use steroids.
Can't help myself.
Yeah, we're getting like hundreds of FPS, as you'd expect.
Go into a corner and we get way more. Look at that, 320.
So yeah, that's what that is. And unless you've got a game with PC speaker sound, you're not going to get any sound effects. So, and even then the PC speaker is pretty quiet. Probably just a little.
La verdad es muy silenciosa esa cosa.
Doesn't really matter, because DOS games aren't really what this is made for. This is very much a Windows 98 machine and is pretty capable for the time in terms of gaming. And when I think 1999, year 2000, I think Need for Speed High Stakes, also known as Road Challenge, also known as Overdrive 4 in Japan. I don't have that version, unfortunately, but yeah, let's just try out Need for Speed 4.
Need for Speed 4.
Full motion video and full screen. Looks great, and it runs pretty darned well. Oh yeah. It does start to slow down.
Ese juego creo que lo voy a traer a mi canal. Posiblemente lo traiga a mi canal, pero sin la música de fondo, porque posiblemente tenga reclamo de derechos de autor cuando suba esto a YouTube. El H2 para Windows 98.
Honestly, this
Una
CD
resolución
audio cable is one of them.
tremenda. El Quake 2 a Pentium 3.
Okay. So the CD audio is working on here. What's going on?
Y lo
Wait, does
sí
Age of
está
Empires 2
funcionando.
not have CD audio? Maybe it was just Age 1 I'm thinking of. Most part had 24 by 76. Time you get into a new level.
Lo que me entiendo es por, qué es lo que hace.
Come on.
¿Qué es lo que hace entender esta cosa en
Yeah, dude.
procesamiento
Entirely
gráfico?
playable.
¿Ves qué juego es?
Drive once it's installed, thank goodness. So we can run that straight. Run it okay without compatibility issues. And while that's taking 45 minutes to shut down,
Unreal
there's one
Tournament
more Windows game
99.
I want to try here. Unreal Tournament Game of the Year Edition, which actually
Edición
doesn't
de
need
juego del año.
Drive once it's installed, thank goodness. So we can run that straight from the janky old hard drive.
Vamos a ver.
Yeah. UT99. You know, once cache. I don't see that message as often anymore. I usually
Está
play
haciendo
this
un
on
precaché.
pretty modern systems now.
Wow.
Oh dear. Okay. Ah. Ah. Oh, I got a headshot with that performance.
That's how good I am.
So as you can see, we're really pushing things here. At least for a bit, once everything is still trying to get loaded in. Oh man. The hitching, stuttering is all over manually to a new hard drive. You just sort of clone this drive and it's performance issues.
De todas maneras, se puede ver películas en DVD en esto. Se puede jugar Jar Jar Rabbit, que lo tiene LGR en disco. A ver, Jar Jar Rabbit 2 está en GOG. Ese está en Steam, en Tomb Raider. Pero la computadora se ve espectacular. No hay ninguna de esas que te diga, venga, yo me la voy a tener que comprar y la voy a tener que vender a mejor postor. Te lo digo, es una computadora bien diseñada para ser bien de Oriente, que incluye demasiadas cosas enfrente. Bueno, vamos con el otro video de un momento. Nos pasamos acá y vamos a quitarlo antes de que se me moleste el stream. Vamos con el video de dos gamers, conocido como Barja, y ya le había pedido el video anteriormente de cómo son sus maquinarias de MC2 de 3486 y de Pentium 1 al 3. Así que un momento que cargue. Bueno, por lo general este tipo de videos no hay nada subtitulado. Ok. ¿Dónde están reacciones? Ahí está. Vamos a pasarlo por acá. Listo. Así que córrele video.
Hello YouTube, today I go to Bart Remmers, aka DOS Gamer, and we're gonna upgrade his old PC to an MS-DOS time machine. But first we need some parts. It's always handy to bring a spare floppy drive, and we're going to install a Voodoo 1 in his system.
La resolución sí está en 720 a 60.
So we need to pass through cable for the
VGA,
footboard.
VGA.
Also a spare video card may come in handy. Let's take
Tarjetas
this
de
one.
video
And
antiguas.
we need a sound card.
Estas son tarjetas de sonido, a mi parecer.
Let's take this AWE A64 because
La
it
Sound
has,
Blaster.
DOS game compatibility and great MIDI for DOS games. Also we need some software. Here we have MS-DOS 6.22, the sound
Los
driver,
disquetes.
Midnight Commander, and I found my floppy with CD-ROM, mouse and zip drive. So we have the hardware we need, we have the software, and we have tools and some camera equipment. So I'm ready to go. Oh, before I forget, I also need my tripod. I'm ready to hit the road.
Bueno, vamos a hacer un reencuentro con Borja del canal de YouTube 2 Gamer.
I'm almost there. So I'm here with
Ahí está.
Remmers aka DOS Gamer. So let's introduce yourself to my viewers.
My name is DOS Gamer. I've got a YouTube channel on which I've got over 1800 videos of classic retro gaming for MS-DOS.
Lo voy a pausar. Este sujeto, si algún usuario gringo lo conoce o que no lo conoce, este señor se llama Borja, de la página de 2 Gamer, y es bueno lo que trae de contenido. Pero vemos que él se quería encontrar con él. Vamos a pasar a ver cómo construyen una máquina retro con esto.
DOS needs a PC speaker.
Well, I tested this one, it works.
And you get people that get annoyed
Prácticamente
by the
tenías un parlante
So I tested when she's not here.
sound. And we have an Intel
que podrías
3X
construir.
chipset. DOS drive
Ahí
is
muestra
available for this card.
una de las
If we
tarjetas.
have a LAN party, we can play Doom or something over the network. Is a Pentium
El
200
procesador.
MMX.
Estoy adelantando esto es para que ustedes miren qué componentes había en la época en lo que yo estaba.
So we have an awesome 8-bit motherboard. Here, let's try it out.
Bueno, una vez encendida van a probar los componentes. Parece que no da señal
Input not supported.
y están revisando el problema.
Out the monitor.
So let's give it another shot.
Yeah.
Y de nuevo la encienden. Ahí empezó a rodar el ventilador. No tiene señal. Eso es. Perfecto.
So we have 4 sticks of 16 megabytes each. Nice. I see a nice option. Soft menu. We can also
Ahí le van a
put your
configurar lo
system.
que es de la BIOS. Es una explicación totalmente tremenda para ingenieros y técnicos. Lo que habitualmente a mí me toca cuando estoy haciendo este tipo de cosas. Ahí lo que están haciendo es una prueba de sonido para poder jugar. Entonces vamos a parar aquí. No alcancé a ver qué videojuego es. Muy bien, Borja está jugando ese. Oh, mala suerte.
Alright, let's do this.
Ahí vemos que juega con una de su. Vamos a otro juego. Están jugando con una Sound Blaster 64, una 3D FX Voodoo 1. Y creo que ese juego al parecer es Tomb Raider, el primero, que se lanzó únicamente para PlayStation, Sega Saturn y MC2.
But the game is running on a good frame rate.
Ahí está en el modo VGA. Pero ¿qué pasaría si con la 3DFX se moviera a Super VGA? Eso es lo que se puede mover con las tarjetas de video actuales, junto con una emulación más o una visualización más detallada. Vale, ahí lo que van a hacer es copiar juegos, ir probándolos. Ahí están probando cosillas. Just Your Rabbit. Parece que el youtuber de por sí
Real smooth and fast, yeah. I love this.
lo puso en modo borroso para que no se viera tanto el juego por derechos de uso o por mal enfoque de la cámara. Me parece que por mal enfoque ya sabemos de que lo arranca. Lo arranca al 60, a 60 fotogramas tremendamente. Commander King, ese videojuego lo he escuchado pero jamás probado. En uno de los huevos de Pascua de Doom 2.
This gameplay of Commander was just awesome. But I like the way what it's in the middle again.
Otra vez, Commander King presenta. A ver, creo que este videojuego lo había probado anteriormente. Este el que vemos, el Wolfenstein 3D, ese lo voy a traer al canal, pero una versión más pulida, mejorada, pero sin dejar de a un lado su esencia habitual. Este es otro juego.
Jump to the other side, climb up, get your gun, fall, shoot.
Y como vemos hay fotogramas totalmente muy al estilo de los 90. Y me refiero a que en ese preciso momento se hacían tantas animaciones de ese calibre. Ahí está insertando un disco, un disquete o un disquete, como decimos aquí en mi familia. Va a ejecutar una aplicación desde el disquete. Por cierto, Barja es holandés. Barja es holandés, así que él hace transmisión los viernes y lunes en la noche de su horario local. A diferencia de mi horario, yo estaría viéndolo en la tarde. Pero parece que es un juego de adivinanzas, que es lo que está probando. Ahí tienes que es un juego de números. Pero bueno, todo esto es lo que ha mostrado Barja, probando sus computadoras, probando los computadores de otros, probando la Sound Blaster 64, la 32. Todo eso se va para buen camino en el mundo de los PC retro. Ahora quiero mostrar frente a ustedes una cosa que he visto por Nostalgia Nerd. Así que vamos allá. Ok, vamos a quitarle esto. Cuando Microsoft dice Reino Unido, traducido automáticamente, ¿dónde está? Español. Okay. Microsoft dice
At the start of 1995, most IBM PC-compatible games that were worth their salt ran under MS-DOS. You could get games for Windows, of course, you could get games for other operating systems, but DOS was where it was at.
A ver, hay una pequeña historia en todo esto antes de comenzar con este video. Recolectar PCs retro de la época no es un lujo. Es un coleccionamiento para uno que quiera como que hacer de su colección y guardarlo o realmente mostrarlo en museo. Yo por lo general, como dije, hago esto para estar recorriendo un gran camino y espero recorrerlo, terminarlo, avanzar un poco más, traerle juegos que nunca han sido vistos por aquí en el streaming, pero que aún así estoy haciendo lo posible de obtenérselos a ustedes. Bueno, la historia de Directx, un aplicativo.
Indeed, WinG had laid the foundations on Windows 3.1, allowing, among others, a uniform set of instructions to facilitate GDI drawing, which beforehand had varied depending on your video card driver. But this was far from perfect, as any compact Presario owners receiving The Lion King for Christmas 1994 will attest to. Directx would expand upon this with Direct Draw, Direct Sound for audio, and Direct Play to manage network communications, allowing developers to create software for a wide range of hardware without bespoke code for each. Of course, initially, this wasn't always the best solution. Even with DirectX, games ran slower than they would under DOS. After all, your little 4MB 486 was still having to heave under the stress of Windows 95 in the background, including these APIs, and then an entire whopping game on top of it. Despite the freedoms DirectX was intended to provide, it was intrinsically higher level and so far less connected to the metal than running anything through DOS. This resulted in higher resource use and often less than favourable communications than you'd have with bespoke, direct communication to video and sound cards. So rather than jumping aboard this DirectX bandwagon, developers were still creating games for DOS. This meant that for most of us, as soon as we'd booted into Windows, we'd swiftly exit to MS-DOS, or for added speed, create a boot menu enabling us to go directly into DOS, rather than going through all this GUI malarkey. But DOS 7 wasn't as friendly with conventional memory as some previous versions, so leaving the graphical user environment was still far from ideal. So Microsoft needed to improve a few things. The first was to improve upon DirectX itself. Its initial September 95 release laid the groundwork, but by mid-1996 we had DirectX 2, which also incorporated elements such as Direct 3D. Anyone who owned a 3D card in the 90s will know about the palaver of having different brands which could run with certain games or not. But even before worrying about true 3D, Microsoft had also approached John Carmack and offered to port Doom and Doom 2 over to DirectX for free, whilst it retained all the publishing rights. This port was led by Microsoft's Gabe Newell, although it was mostly programmed by Fred Hummel and Roger Weiss. And by 1996, Doom 95 was launched. Of course, despite the wave of true 3D fighters that would soon emerge, Doom was still one of the leading games on the platform, and an MS-DOS staple. So Microsoft spent millions promoting this port in order to convince everyone to switch over to Windows 95 and DirectX gaming.
You might wonder what I'm doing here. Well, I'm getting kind of an inside look at some of these new games. I think you'll be amazed at all the new games we're going to show you here this evening. We've got a few key points to remember. First, Windows 95 is the game platform.
Yeah.
Don't interrupt me.
By '96, Microsoft knew how much the games industry was worth, and they foresaw how much more it would be worth in the future. So naturally, they wanted their operating system at the forefront. But Microsoft, being Microsoft, were greedy. They wanted the entire market. They didn't just want DOS gamers on Windows, they wanted Apple gamers on Windows, PlayStation gamers on Windows, Sega Saturn gamers on Windows. And with the Nintendo 64 fresh in the works, they definitely wanted households to buy a PC instead of one of those. In fact, Microsoft were decidedly anti-console at this point, and they made it clear.
Well, I better go work on cleaning up this neighborhood here. So I'm off. But don't forget, when you're trying out our haunted house, don't lose your head. See ya.
In January 1996's issue of PC Zone, this story popped up. Don't buy a console. According to Microsoft, it's a bad idea to go and spend £300 on a new console when you can upgrade to Windows 95 for just £70. At the recent Windows 95 games launch, which took place across the pond in the good old USA in Seattle, at the Microsoft campus recently, Bill Gates appeared via video armed with a Doom shotgun, picking off orcs and demons to tell the world that there would be 75 games titles available for Windows 95 by Christmas, and that Microsoft would be supporting the PC as the games platform of the future.
No, this is the game with the DOS version. Why are you sending a DOS version? I'll never be able to get this so far.
According to internal research, Microsoft maintains that over 28% of PC usage is spent playing games, and has urged retailers to sell Windows 95 games separately from other software, just as they would any other games format, in an effort to promote the games platform of the future.
No, I don't remember any of this crap.
So Microsoft were trying to create the perception that Windows 95 was in fact a console replacement in itself. Now, I've been saying Microsoft because it's simpler, but it was really technology leader Alex St. John with Craig Eisler and Eric Engstrom who had brought this to fruition, sometimes even battling against Microsoft management themselves, before the pin finally dropped for Bill Gates. But now it had. Here we were at October 1995 with the Direct Access launch party, with as many game developers and publishers invited along to be wooed on board this new platform. One of those developers was of course id Software, whose demo section featured a 8-foot tall
Panty-hamster.
Wow.
with numerous
Johnson.
hanging from strings, spraying blood on the visitors to this haunted house mock-up. Yes, that's what Bill was referring to in that earlier video.
Don't lose your head.
He was
See ya.
fully on board now. And yes, you heard what I said. I'm not saying it again. Apparently, it was quite dark in there, so we can only presume most people didn't notice. But some did. And this was enough for publishers and the media to be shocked into accepting this new view of the gaming PC, spurring them on to put their own plans into action. Along with some other reasons, I'm sure. On the opposing page of PC Zone, another news snippet spelt out DOS is dead, saying, if you believe the carefully planned hype, this time next year it will be almost impossible to buy a DOS-based PC game. It might sound impossible, but that's exactly what Microsoft believes, and that's what publishers Virgin, EA, Gremlin and Interplay are saying too. So other than Doom 95, how were Microsoft hoping to achieve this dramatic hiatus to Windows 95 gaming? Well, the first trick up their sleeve was a CD sampler, similar to the software CD sampler that started shipping with copies of Windows, but purely for games. This is that CD. It's called Games for Windows 95 and it contains some 20 playable demos for what should be the best games to hit the operating system over the coming months. It was given away at promotional stands, but it was also used as a promotional tool in itself to get users to buy a 95 upgrade. If you bought a copy of Windows 95 before February 96, you could check out over 20 games for free on our exclusive CD sampler. Yes, Microsoft were using demos to try and shift their operating system. But then demos carried a different weight back then. This was the age of the demo disc. Games were expensive and demos felt like extremely competitive windows to other realms.
Alright, hold up, I can't keep living like this, look. Since I stopped running Squarespace adverts, you have inundated me with complaints. Just look at this. Dwayne from Birmingham. Last week, I worked out my life's passion project. Good on you, Dwayne. But then you stopped posting Squarespace links. How am I supposed to realise my dream on the web now? Sandra from Bournemouth. I was hoping to find an easy-to-use website building solution in your recent videos, but there was none. What am I supposed to do? These are all good questions. So, in response, I have decided to bring back Squarespace.
With Squarespace, you can start with nothing and have a website by the end of the day. Pick a template you like, use their easy-to-navigate interface, boom, fully built website with integrated social media, a shop, SEO, and more.
Get 10% off your first website or custom domain using the link below.
In fact, by January 96, Microsoft had released it as a standalone product. You could pop down to PC World and pick up a copy for £9.95. But this wasn't just your bog standard demo CD, or a crappy cover disc with a cheap front-end menu. Oh no, a lot of effort went into producing this thing. It's almost like watching Babylon 5. But it's not just a flash intro. The browser for the games is really a game in itself. Welcome to the Manhattan space station Odyssey, a ship of wonder and excitement, developed by Monolith Productions Inc., who would go on to develop Blood, Fear, and recently Mortal Kombat 11. But could this fancy interface, pumping MIDI soundtrack, and a bundle of demos really convince people to jump on board the Windows 95 gaming bandwagon over everything else? Well, from the go, they want you to know that Windows 95 gaming is the future, and that includes panning their own products. There is anti-DOS propaganda.
Hola Calten, ¿cómo andas?
This was Microsoft's main operating system just a few months prior, and now they treated it like a turd on the side of the road. Now you can switch this maze between several resolutions, the best of which is apparently not compatible with my capture card, but it at least gives accessibility for those still rocking a 486 processor with a Trident video card. Like I was. The games, however, mostly need something a little more spicy. We've got the aforementioned Doom 95, naturally, which I should note requires better specifications than its DOS variant, but there are loads of other titles here organised between different areas. Over there we've got Beavis and Butthead in Virtual Stupidity,
see, but check it out. Someday will be the fry.
Over here we've got Fury 3. Over there, Battle Beast. And over there we've got Dogs. A varied indeed. Plus, if you wanted to be wowed by the incredible capabilities, you could load up Meltdown and control the speed of spinning wallpaper. What more could you possibly want? Apart from anything, this disc is one hell of a nostalgic trip, mainly because it features such a variety of Windows 95 entertainment, and some of it has long been forgotten. As a kid, it would be hard not to be lured into this world of games, set on board this three-dimensional spaceship, a spaceship that even hides its own secrets and unmapped rooms. Of course, if you didn't want the faff of roaming these corridors, then you could always use the 2D menu and work your way through the software methodically, enough here to keep you occupied for a good few days at the very least. Now, it's debatable how much this disc turned people on to Windows 95 as a games platform, but it's clear that, spurred on by Microsoft's enthusiasm and their in-house assistants, developers were quickly being brought round to Microsoft's new worldview, and DOS was starting to be abandoned in favour for their new GUI. By late 1996 we were also on to DirectX 3. This train wasn't going anywhere slow, and either were the games. Each DirectX iteration provided better APIs, allowing more direct communication to the hardware. It was also becoming knitted better with the hardware, and the high-level problems were slipping away. When DirectX was in control,
este juego lo trae ya al canal.
its own graphical control. It would stop paging memory, and inputs from the controller and mouse could be exclusively available for games access. As for the games consoles, well, they were still selling like hotcakes, and of course they were. This was an incredibly exciting time for the sofa gamer. But it's okay because October 1996 brought Microsoft's second weapon, Games Sampler 2. Another round of demo delight. Now, I don't know whether this is because I'm running on Windows 98 and it's rebelling, but Games Sampler 2 just refused to create an installation directory for itself. So I had to create my own, which it then promptly claimed was its own doing. Ha! Still, I'm going to be the bigger man and not get into an argument here. Game Sampler 2 treats us to another exciting intro sequence, followed by even more utter disdain towards DOS in a slightly different spaceship environment. Like the first disc, it also has a banging MIDI soundtrack though. Also like the first chip, we've got distinct areas for entertainment, games, and this one weird room with a single website. I mean, okay. In fact, this entire demo disc has a heavy...
Un pequeño momento, gente.
No worries, there's only one road, so I can't get lost. All I have to do is walk. Place by the name of heaven, the promised land. Everyone is waiting in a very long line. Place by the name of heaven, there's a comforting lot. I don't hesitate, just be guided.
Listo. Bueno, ¿quiénes están por acá? Carlton Boone ya estaba hace un momento. Lo saludé pero ni me respondió, así que bueno, no importa. Seguimos.
The emphasis on redirecting you.
and talk to my heart for a long time. When did I stop flying? Is it the wings
Bueno, ahora sí vamos a continuar.
Two websites, as Microsoft tried to knit Internet Explorer as closely to Windows as possible. But it feels like Microsoft perhaps couldn't get as many publishers on board for this demo disc. Instead of monitors packed full of visuals, there are rooms with broken monitors, presumably where demos should have played. Still, you can dive into titles like Road Rash, Hellbender, and Captain Quasar, and still have a reasonable time. Plus, if you want to experience the funkiest warping textures known to man, you can try Hold On To Your Nuts. By 1997, Windows 95 was turning into a credible gaming platform, with continued updates to DirectX and the underlying hardware to better make use of it. But really, it wouldn't be until Windows 98 that the environment was completely accepted as a credible platform for gaming. 98 was really what Windows 95 had intended to be, and perhaps it needed those few years to really grow up and to take the mantle from DOS. And for DirectX to improve, of course. Of course, it also gave developers time to create some truly excellent titles for this new environment. Of course, by 1998 though, Microsoft had realised that taking the console crown wasn't going to be possible for the PC. Well, not how we'd imagined it anyway. Console gaming and PC gaming are just different beasts, and so rather than beating them, they would join them, where another splinter team helped along by St. John, Eisler and Engstrom would begin the idea process for the Windows Entertainment Project, which of course would utilise DirectX.
Ahí lo que estamos viendo, damas y caballeros, es el inicio de la primera consola que Microsoft estaba desarrollando en su entonces. Erka Paman, hola, ¿cómo andas? Haga su saludo ahí en el chat. Y ya se fue.
The DirectX name eventually paving the way.
Ya, denme un momento. Pero como iba diciendo, esa ya sería la primera consola que Microsoft estaría desarrollando para lo suyo. Y que posiblemente que en ese entonces sería su gran competencia. Vamos a verlo más a detalle.
For the name Xbox. So, the technology that was hoped would dominate gaming did in fact just about achieve its goal. Maybe not as Microsoft initially envisaged, but then things hardly ever turn out the way you intend them. Until next time, I've been Nostalgia Nerd. Toodaloo.
Ya sería el final del video. Espero que les haya gustado. Vamos con un último video y de ahí a finalizar el stream, ya que quiero preparar algo para esta noche. Entonces, veamos, Cercapan estuvo aquí, Creed estuvo haciendo lo suyo. Y demás cosas. Así que vamos por esto de una buena vez. Pero antes, gente, permítanme un momento y ya vuelvo. Bueno, chicos, lamentablemente les vamos a decir lo siguiente, y es que no se va a poder mostrar el otro video porque ya me pasé las horas de transmisión. Así que nos vamos a ver en esta noche a las 7 de la noche, horario Colombia, con más transmisión y traer juegos retro aquí en el canal. Un abrazo para todos ustedes. Nos estaremos viendo, como dije, 7 p.m. horario Colombia el día de hoy. No se lo pierdan.
Once there everything comes through. I've heard of such a dreamy place. Do you think my broken wings will heal? Hope so, 'cause I can't fly well. I wonder if this rain will stop one day. Someone's been crying all along. No worries, there's only one road, so I can't get lost. All I have to do is walk. Placed by the name of heaven, the promised land. Everyone is waiting in a very long line. Placed by the name of heaven, there's a comforting lot. I don't hesitate, just be guided. I wonder how far I have come, and what have I ever done? Alright, well, I'm sure I'll be there. placed by the name of heaven, the promised land. I wonder what was waiting for me. Placed by the name of heaven, there's a comfort in that. I don't hesitate, just be guided. I haven't talked to my heart for a long time. When did I stop flying? Is it a wind or a